definitely make sure to slap 1,000 likes to
What's
get
up,
access to
guys?
that.
And
If you
today
guys
we're
hit
gonna be
that, I'll be
doing
dropping part
what
2 immediately.
if.
And if you guys just cannot wait, just know that part 2 is going to be up on the channel right now for you guys to watch if you're a member. That said, enjoy. Hey Ross, sauce it up. Shit can get dangerous, yeah. Shit can get dangerous, yeah. Staying with a lame bitch, yeah. Well, I'm staying with the gang bitch, cause that's gang shit. Like, ooh, and they gon' stay by my side, cause them boys down to ride, yeah. Like, ooh, she tryna play with my mind. I can't be wasting no time, yeah. Alright, so to start the story off, first we need to explain what Deku's childhood is going to be like because, yes, he is just literally just going to be the son of Inka Midoriya and he is going to be raised by is a very, very loose term because if you really think about it, All Might is the number one hero of the world, which means All Might has a lot of responsibilities that he has to deal with in day to day life. He's not exactly going to always be home for Izuku, but when he is always definitely going to be Izuku's hero because it's his father. I mean, everybody's dad is their own hero when they're growing up. So that's kind of how Izuku is going to be raised as a childhood. However, once he gets to that ripe age of like 4 years old and everybody starts to wonder what the son of All Might's quirk is even going to be, Izuku begins to get a lot of the limelight placed on him and a lot of expectations on him early on. He's pretty much going to be the LeBron James son of the My Hero Academia world, and he's pretty much just going to be Bronny James with how much expectation people are going to put on him just because he's the son of a pro hero. That would mean that during his childhood, all he would hear about is, oh my god, he has so much potential. He's gonna be even stronger than All Might. He's gonna be this, he's gonna be that, he's gonna be this, he's gonna be that. And this is all you would hear, just hype, expectation, and people saying that he's gonna be great and that he's destined for so much just because he's the son of All Might. That's pretty much going to be all that he hears when he's starting to grow up, and there's just going to be so much hype around him that he's going to be Mr. Popular all throughout his early years until eventually, things would kind of slow down. And let me explain what I mean by that. See, growing up, because he's the son of All Might, this means that he would end up training harder than anybody else, and eventually would get to sustained levels of strength by the time that he makes it to middle school. And yes, guys, he doesn't have a quirk. And you guys might be like, okay, so how's he the son of All Might and doesn't have a quirk? Well, think about it this way. I know that All Might has one for all, but this doesn't mean that he's going to just pass it on to his son since the quirk isn't his. It doesn't work like that. So basically, All Might, while yeah, Izuku is his son, that doesn't mean he's going to be getting a quirk. And because Inko in the original bared a son that had no quirk regardless, we're pretty much just going to be saying that Izuku is actually diagnosed as quirkless. But because this time around All Might knew what it was like to grow up without a quirk, and in this day and age he knows his son will suffer for that and be ridiculed, he decides to tell the media that his son has an enhancement quirk, and or goes on to tell his son that that's the reason why he's so strong and powerful. That he inherited that, but someday he might potentially get something else, something more powerful depending on the situation. And Izuku from here would begin to be told during his early years from his father All Might that someday he might end up inheriting his quirk. And this would lead Izuku to be like, okay, so even though I don't have anything, someday I'm gonna get one for all from my dad. Like this is something that's just in his head because it's like who else would his dad give the quirk to other than his own son, his flesh and bone. He's literally his son. He's tied to him by blood. You can't give it to anybody else, right? Right? That's just what Izuku would be thinking. And so eventually he would get to the age of 14 where almost all of the hype would have essentially died for Izuku, where people don't even believe he can even become a top 10 hero anymore. He's weak compared to All Might, and it gets to his head after hearing that he isn't good enough from the media. But one thing that keeps him going is the fact that he has his mother's support since his dad is always busy, and even the thought that he'll potentially get one for all someday, if not for sure. He's not sure when, but he knows that someday he'll unlock it and have the abilities of All Might himself. And so he trains his body up to the max, and he's pretty much as physically capable as you can get at this point. One day, though, when Izuku's coming back home from school, this would be around the 12-month mark before the UA entrance exams would even start, Izuku would come home and hear his father in the kitchen. It's at this point that he's like, all right, I'm gonna just sneak on in here. And so he does, he makes no noise, and he can hear his father telling Inko something. He would hear him happily telling her about how he found a perfect successor. Somebody with a noble heart, with a perfect body for one for all, and somebody who reminds him a lot of him when he was his age. And Izuku, hearing this, would immediately get angry and say, what? He bursts into the kitchen, and his father's like, hey, champ. From here, Izuku was be like, you're kidding, right? Tell me you're joking, Dad. You didn't give one for all to somebody else. There's no way. Who? Who would you even give it to that isn't your son? It was supposed to be me, damn it. As his father just looks back at him and says that he already gave him the quirk and that he figured that he wouldn't even get mad. But Izuku, he gets enraged and would pretty much go on to lunge at his dad and say, it should have been me. I'm your damn flesh and blood. How can you give that quirk to somebody else other than me? How is that even a thing that goes through your head? And from here, All Might just, he grabs his son and he restrains him. And from here, he proceeds to tell him that he would train his whole life, thinking that someday he was going to get the chance to inherit the quirk. But for All Might, his own father, to just give it to somebody else and discard his efforts and training for the past 14 years of his life, all he's thought about was someday inheriting one for all, soaring through the skies like his father, having the superhuman strength that nobody could rival. But he took that all away from him the second he gave it to somebody else. And All Might looks at him and puts a hand on his shoulder, telling him that he was never promised it. And that giving it to somebody else is not a bad thing, that one for all isn't something that just gets passed down from family to family. That's not how he inherited it. If that was the case, then, his mentor's son would have had it. And, Izuku's like, no, like, it should have been me. And from here, All Might is like, you just don't understand. It's better to give other people a chance and to have more heroes than to just make an overpowered hero. And from here, Izuku, he's just like, I can't believe you. You're serious. From here, Izuku goes on to look at his dad and say, for years, I've lived under your shadow, Dad. I've been deemed a reject by literally every single source of the media. Everybody's always talking about, oh, he messed up here, he did this, his grades are slipping. His 100% grade point average slipped down to a 97. All I hear is judgment from everybody. And the only person that I thought that could fix everything was you. The day I would get one for all was the day everything changed. And I finally got to live up to the expectations of being your son. I'm your son. Do you know what that means? That means that every time I do something, people bat an eye to me. And anytime I mess up, people treat it like it's the end of the world. You don't know what it's like because all you hear is how great you are, how amazing you are. That's all you ever get to hear. And I don't. I have to live in a different world than you. You'll never understand, Dad. From here, All Might literally looks at him in just silence, and Izuku grabs his stuff and pretty much would end up leaving for a couple of weeks. He disappears, and All Might tries to find his son, but he literally can't do it. And from here, he would go off to live off of his money, staying at hotel to hotel for a couple of weeks, as one night, he's finally caught by Endeavor as he's trying to stop some crime that was going on in an alleyway nearby. All Might, after, being informed of the fact that Endeavor caught his son stopping some crime, would lay into All Might and tell him that his son is not allowed to do that until he has a license. And All Might would pull some strings to make sure that none of this news would be heard by anybody, and so pretty much his son would get off scot-free because, he's the son of All Might. Izuku on the way home would pretty much just stay silent in the car, and All Might would try to make him understand why he chose that other kid, looking him in the eyes and just noticing that there was nothing but blatant hatred in the eyes of Izuku for him. Izuku looks at him and says, no, I don't understand. All I've known is is thinking that someday I would get that quirk because I'm your son. How could you do this to me, Dad? Do you just not care about me? Maybe it's because you don't spend any time with me, but I don't know what it is. You chose somebody else over me. I can't believe you. From here, he would go on and look at his dad, slam the door, and say, all I'm going to hear for the rest of my life is what a disappointment the son of All Might was. From here, he burges into his room, and All Might is just left there just to hear how, like, what his son just told him, that he'll literally be called a disappointment all his life because he's never going to amount to what everybody thought he was. And after hearing that, All Might finally kind of understands what Izuku's trying to say. I mean, Izuku's not trying to say that, like, obviously he's not gonna be a hero, because Izuku knows it damn well himself that he's definitely gonna become a hero. But Izuku also knows that he's not gonna become the kind of hero that everybody was expecting of him, unless he has a quirk like One for All. Water break. Oh yeah, that hit the spot. But anyways, Izuku knows that he's not exactly going to be the hero that everybody thought he was going to be, and so he is just angry. And as the months would go by leading forward to the day of the entrance exam, or the recommendation exam in his case, Izuku would pretty much decide that he's done. Like, he literally is not going to speak to his dad. And so for the next couple of months, All Might would not be there. He would literally be training his new successor most of the time. And on the few occasions that he was there and tried to get closer to his son, he just pretty much brushed him off every single time. There was not a single day where All Might was capable of stopping of stopping Izuku's hatred for him, right? Like, there's not a single time where All Might was able to even get a conversation out of him. And when they were at the dinner table, Izuku would just grab his plate and leave. Like, he just grabs his stuff and goes straight to his room. He's like, nope, not talking to you. And All Might was thinking, he's a teenager, obviously, he'll get over it. He'll realize someday that, it's not the end of the world just because he doesn't have One for All. And that's just what All Might would be thinking, but he doesn't realize what he just did to his son. Like, could you guys, like, just put yourself in that situation? You were the son of, like, just imagine being the son of, like, a pro athlete, right? And all your life you trained to become a pro athlete like your dad, but you don't got it. Like some people got it and some people don't, and you just don't have the athleticism, you just don't have the height, you just don't something, right? And you're just not gonna be able to amount to what everybody thought that you were going to. They think that you're gonna be better or even on par or something, but not everybody's built the same, and not everybody can handle the pressures of being a star. And Izuku was kind of letting this pressure get to him. The pressure of hearing the media every single day since he's a kid. This is something that would genuinely be for him. And because he's not old enough to understand or manage himself or even be taught what to do, he would never understand how to pretty much cope with what's going on in his life. And